The Royal Conservatory, American, German, Jewish and French Christmas traditions. And Daniel and Mark take a culinary tour of last year's cooking programs, all of this year on Sunday. Of 15 in 1. I hope you've all drunk enough, eaten enough and got the presents that you wanted and are ready to watch today's program, where we're visiting a concert of the Brussels Choral Society here at the Royal Conservatory. Now we're going to be talking to the composer of the musical triptych, as well as going home with 2 of the choir members to find out a little bit more about how they prepared for Christmas. But first of all, let's hear some music. One part of this concert, the Holiday Triptych, was especially composed for the Brussels Choral Society by composer Eric Delson. Now, the 3 pieces of music are based on traditional Jewish, American, and French poems and songs. We went home with the composer so that he could tell us a little bit more about his piece of music.
About a year ago, Tom Cunningham, the director of the Brussels Choral Society, and I were chatting about maybe doing a piece, writing a piece for the choir. And I fell in love with the idea right away. I thought it was such a great idea, especially something around this time of year where so many cultures are celebrating something. And I thought it was a very interesting idea, especially considering how many different cultures and countries are represented in the Brussels Choral Society. I think we boast over 20 when we print our literature, etc. And it's really fascinating, and it really does say something about the organization, how everyone is able to come together through music, of course, which is mine and everyone else's passion. The first piece is called Ma'otsur. It's a Hebrew hymn, dating really the text from the 13th century, but the melody itself is actually German from about the 17th, 18th century. It's probably the most famous Hanukkah tune. Everybody knows Ma'otsur, but I tried to put a little twist in the works and take a very traditional hymn, turn it into something a bit more modern, a bit more rhythmic, and make something new out of something old, really. The second piece is German, yes. It's Es ist ein Rosensprungen, which is probably, again, one of the most well-known of German carols. And it was sort of an opportunity for me to try something a little bit different with the soloist, with Maureen, who I believe sings wonderfully, and with the orchestra to play with some of the sounds and some of the textures of the orchestra. The third piece, the French carol, Quel est cet odeur, was really special to me. I came across it actually in New York, and I heard it and thought, wow, this is just a beautiful melody. I wasn't so thrilled with the arrangement at the time, but I thought, this is just really beautiful. And for me, with the 6 verses, I felt as though it was something that could just continue to grow and continue to expand, and starting from just the very smallest of beginnings, through the soprano solo, the choir enters. Each group of the choir begins to sing, the women and then the men, and then finally everybody all together at the end with the soprano soloist in this big sort of Mahlerian explosion of sound.
Now we know a little bit more about the historical background of the triptych. Let's go home with one of the choir members, Cynthia Kaiser, to find out how she celebrates Christmas and how she combines celebrating her Jewish-American traditions with the traditions of her French husband. Do they actually combine them, or do they take in turns, one year celebrating one type of Christmas and the next year celebrating a different one? Let's find out.
My father is Jewish, my mother is Christian from England. And Hanukkah for us was something we always did with my dad. It was to link us with our Jewish past, and it just became a family tradition because lighting candles is something that children find fun. So that's how he introduced Hanukkah to us. Hanukkah dates back to when the Jews won a battle over the Syrians, and their temple was destroyed, and when they went back to it, they wanted to light a flame, and the only lamp they could find only had oil for one night, and yet it burned for 8 nights, and that's the miracle that Hanukkah celebrates. That's why we light candles for 8 nights.
I like lighting the candles. It's because when I do it, is that I like seeing them flow smaller.
Because they're still very young, I don't know if they really understand the whole history behind it, but I use the lighting candles to get them to think about other cultures, religions. They are curious even at their age, and I find that reading stories written by other people is the easiest way to introduce the subject.
Let's have some fun. There are stories and riddles and presents and games, and the song that we sing as we kindle the flames.
I'm American, but my husband is French, so every year we have to decide how we're going to spend Christmas, and it usually depends on which family we're celebrating with that year. This year, his family is coming to stay with us, so we'll be doing it the French way, which is on Christmas Eve, we have a very large meal, very festive meal, and we're debating whether the kids are old enough to join us for that this year. And then we stay up quite late dancing and playing games and things like that. And then I believe in France they put their shoes underneath the tree. However, on that side of things, we tend to go with the British-American tradition. We hang up our stockings.
So now that we know a bit more about Jewish, French and British traditions, let's go with one of the sopranos from the choir, Silke Clem, to see how she prepares for Christmas with her East German husband.
Special for Christmas. Mm-hmm.
That's what you like in the north, isn't it?
No.
I am coming from southern Germany, from Munich, from Bavaria, but we are living here in Brussels for a long time already, since 74. What we do here, ever since we are married, we have a bit of a mixed tradition between Eastern Germany and Southern Germany. So we have a Christmas tree that comes on the 24th, and we have the crown, the Adventskranz, where we light one candle every week, you know, until Christmas. Now we have 3, so next time it will be Christmas. And we take out all these little Eastern German things which we love and which give us the feeling of being at home, being in Germany, although we are living in Belgium. So I think the Christmas tradition is something we shall always keep. Also, we are very well integrated in Belgium, but this is something we keep to ourselves.
It's important because it's a tradition which in our region where I come from, in southern Saxony, in the Erzgebirge, just at the Czech border, we have all these pyramids and crypts and all these nice little orchestras and angels and on for hundreds of years. The pyramids are pretty small here. I mean, they stand in some of the villages up to heights of 8 meter, 10 meter. And they are, when they come in this size, they are covered on the different levels with the figures from German fairy tales. So on top you have, in this case, Hänsel and Gretel, and down there you have Blanche-Neige with the 7 dwarfs around her, which is very nice if you give it to children, if they look at it, if they watch it, turning around every Christmas.
I just submitted myself on his traditions, because his traditions were obviously much stronger than mine. So, for example, we have taken his menu for Christmas Eve, which is every year the same, and it's one time in the year that he cooks and does it perfectly. And that is a sauerkraut and sausages, and potatoes, which is a very, very simple meal, but we have it every Christmas evening, you know, on the 24th.
What I want to mention as well is that when I was little, my mother always told me, please do not forget what you are dreaming of during the nights between the 24th of December and the 6th of January. It makes 12 nights, and what you dream the first night is likely to happen, to become true during the month of January, and so on. Doesn't mean that you're necessarily dreaming about a girl and getting married during January, but you might fall in love.
Okay, well, that's the end of the Brussels Choral Society concert and the end of our look at Christmas traditions. Now it's time to move on to food. For the last Salut on the Coast of this year, Mark and Daniel get together to take a culinary look at last year's programmes.